Hello everyone. Hi. I had to reschedule my dentist appointment twice before finally mustering up the courage to go last week. As the dentist approached me with a small needle, I will admit, my heart was pounding and I briefly considered making a run for it. Now I know what you're thinking. How can someone with a fancy title like a doctor be such a nervous wreck at the dentist? You're right. This fear of needles started at the age of 7 when I had a small injury for which I felt the doctor gave me a huge injection and all hell broke loose. On our way back home, I was crying and fussing until my father stopped by a blind man on the street. Looking at this man, my pain and fear took a back seat and I got distracted by his messy hair, long beard, and torn clothes. My father gave him some money, but I thought he must be hungry as well. So we got him some food. I saw a bright spark in his eyes and a wide smile on his face, and that instantly brought a smile to my face, and I shook hands with empathy for the first time. So, how would empathy change your life for the better? For children, empathy helps them self-regulate their emotions and be more emotionally connected to one another. Now, it was my birthday, and my father got me a doctor's toy set. And now, it was my turn to go after people with my toy syringe. Little did I know at that time that my silly doctor role play would become my life's greatest ambition when I lost my father to a medical illness at the age of 12. Becoming a doctor is never easy, and the passing of my father added to the financial difficulties I faced. As I struggled to find myself a residency spot in the United States, I was left with very little money. Junior doctors at my medical school had 500 rupees of mine left with them. Instead of taking it back, I asked them to use it for a good cause. They started with that 500 rupees, and through their efforts, they were able to collect 14,000 rupees, and they helped blind and orphan children in India by providing them with educational opportunities. At that time, those orphan children in India and I in the United States were standing on a very unstable ground. But it was the empathy of many people that doors of opportunities were opened for us and we were able to achieve our dreams. Today, those orphan children have grown up to be engineers and businessmen, and they in turn are helping other orphan children. So, how would empathy change your life for the better? Empathy helps us connect with each other, find purpose in our own struggles, and make a difference in this world. As you all know, in the healthcare industry, we have long working hours on our feet, but it is all worth it when my patients, just like that blind man from my childhood, smile. But despite my busy schedule, I made sure I carve out time for myself and my passions. One of my great loves is traveling. As I traveled and met people all over the world, I was struck by the realization that love, heartbreak, and humanity spoke the same universal language regardless of where we came from. Paris was next on my bucket list. But 1 week before my flight to Paris, I had a terrible fall while I was going to see a patient of mine, and I was rushed to the emergency room immediately. That night, I was discharged home on crutches. When I went home, I realized that my day-to-day activities were taken away from me. I realized that I couldn't use the restroom that night because my knee was swollen. At night, I realized that I couldn't get into the bed because I was all by myself. And the next day, I realized that I couldn't get into the shower. I was alone, and I felt helpless. And being a doctor myself, I had no shortcuts to healing, and my injuries took their own sweet time to mend. I started to gain weight, and I wouldn't even fit into my clothes. But during that downward spiral, I paused. I realized that even when I was down and out, I had the right to view myself as a human being who deserved love and compassion, especially from myself. So I went and got myself brand new clothes, 2 sizes up, and oh boy, I looked beautiful. So, how would empathy change your life for the better? For yourself, empathy is important because it allows you to be less judgmental of yourself. In the wise words of Model RuPaul, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else? And there are times the empathy that you give others must be directed inwards too. A few months later came the next setback. I had a consequential injury in my good leg, and at this point, I had injuries in both my legs, and I was unable to perform the duties of a physician. The most brutal blow was losing my job. More than 10 years of education and training were taken away from me one moment. It was a soul-crushing experience, as being a doctor was my identity. Now, what do I tell that 12-year-old girl whose only dream was to be a doctor? What do I tell her? I gathered courage and went to a medical director within our system asking for a role in which I had no experience. But despite my lack of experience and the challenges posed by my disability, my boss saw fit to offer me this job. Looking at my enthusiasm, my natural response to his empathy was to give my blood, sweat, and tears to this role, and within no time, I was doing exceptionally well, bringing new ideas to the table. His kindness and understanding were met with my loyalty and passion tenfold. So, how would empathy change your life for the better? For a leader, empathy helps them recognize the worth and potential of an individual despite the lack of experience and disabilities, demonstrating a strong commitment to diversity and inclusion. Thanks to his kindness, my life was back on track, and I finally took that flight to Paris to see the magnificent Eiffel Tower after 2 years. Empathy also enables us to celebrate our good times with our loved ones. Throughout the course of this new path in my life, I unexpectedly ran into a nonprofit organization for senior citizens in our community. The mission of the founder was to teach seniors technology just like he taught his mother by using volunteers from the community. During this process, I met Susie, one of our senior citizens. Susie was lonely, yet thrilled to learn technology. I helped her call her grandson Chris on FaceTime, and we chatted with Chris for quite a while. The next time I went to meet Susie, I saw her watching Hauser, the 2-cello player, on YouTube, and she tells me, "Dr. M, this is a secret. I have a massive crush on Hauser." Wait a minute, wasn't she lonely just last week and now she has a crush on YouTube? Go for it, Susie. Susie can now do her doctor's appointments online through a video call, and she's one of our volunteers. And through empathy, we created a ripple effect of seniors teaching technology to other senior citizens. The children in my community pitched in as well and crafted these beautiful cards. These lovely interactions remind me of my interaction with that blind man from my childhood, and each time I forget my own pain in my leg. So, how would empathy change your life for the better? For a community, acting with empathy not only benefits the ones receiving it, but also the ones giving it, inspiring us to live a healthier life, both emotionally and mentally. As you can see now, empathy is like a domino effect. It starts with one person showing that empathy, and it leads to a chain reaction of positive impact across ages, genders, abilities, and continents. Unlike that doctor from my childhood who gave me a huge injection for a small injury, there are some small actions we all could take to tackle the big issue of declining empathy in this world. First of all, for yourself, talk to yourself as you would talk to a friend. Trust me, it makes all the difference. For a parent, it is crucial to create opportunities for children that foster empathetic connections. For a leader, empathize with your team members by being compassionate to their struggles. And finally, for a community, focus on your similarities rather than the differences. Empathy is the antidote to fear. In the end, empathy is the key that unlocks the door to true diversity, including the diversity of abilities. It allows us to overcome our biases, prejudices, and stereotypes and appreciate the richness of human experiences, including the experiences of those with disabilities, perhaps their special abilities. Empathy enables us to celebrate our differences that make us unique and harness the power of diversity for the greater good. When we practice empathy, we can create inclusive societies where everyone is seen, heard, understood, and respected. Empathy is just not a feeling. It's an action that empowers us to create a more diverse and equitable world. Today, I want to leave you all with a powerful question. How would empathy change your life for the better? Thank you.